Chapter 53, Population. So what is population ecology? It's the study of populations in relationship to the environment, including influences on the environment such as density and distribution, the age structure, and the population size. So this picture on the right is a fur seal population of St. Paul Island. It's off the coast of Alaska, and it has experienced dramatic fluctuations in size. So population says fluctuations. The definition of a population is a group of individuals of a single species living in the same general area. So what is density and what is dispersion, and how do they affect population ecology? Density is the number of individuals per unit area or volume. Okay? So it's the number, how dense the population is. Dispersion is the pattern of spacing among individuals within the boundaries of the population. So this is a diagram of density. Determining the density of a natural population is difficult, sometimes impractical or impossible to count all the individuals, such as the population dynamics here, with births going in, deaths going out, and immigration. Deaths and immigration remove individuals from the population, but births and immigration add individuals to the population. Okay, so that's density. Dispersion, there are three different types of dispersion. The clumped dispersion is the most common type. Okay, here a clump for many animals such as these wolves living in groups increases the effectiveness of hunting, spreads the work of protecting and caring for young, and helps exclude individuals from their territory. And here you can see clumped dispersion. Okay, also in the newer edition of the book, it illustrates sea stars as a clumped dispersion where if they live together, more abundant. Uniform dispersion is where individuals are evenly distributed, like these penguins. Birds nesting on a small island such as king penguins on the South Georgia Island and the South Atlantic Ocean, they exhibit universal spacing, and they maintain that by aggressive interaction between. Random dispersion is shown with these plants of dandelions. The position of each individual is independent of other individuals, so it's completely random. Dandelions grow wherever their windblown seeds land or germinate. Demography. What is demography? It's the study of vital statistics of a population and how they change over time. So, to study demography, you have to know death rates and birth. And demography, you use life tables. It's an age-specific summary of the survival pattern of a population. So here is a life table of Belding's ground squirrels. It reveals many things. Females, males, number alive at the start of the year. So here you can see females have a tendency to live a little longer than males. You can look at the death rate, average life expectancy, number of deaths during the year, etc. So you can compare and contrast with using a life table. A survivorship curve this is curves for male and females Belding ground squirrels. Okay. The logarithmic scale on the y-axis allows the number of survivors to be visible across the entire range, 2 to 1,000 individuals on the graph. So it shows a relatively constant death rate with longer survivorship in females. Okay, this is another survivorship curve, an idealized survivorship curve, types 1, 2, and 3. Again, the y-axis is logarithmic, the x-axis is a relative scale, so that the species with widely varying lifespans, like humans, can be presented together on the same graph as squirrels and limpets. Reproductive rates. So again, in demography, you look at the reproductive table or fertility schedule. Age-specific summary of the reproductive rates in a population. It describes the reproductive patterns. So here, again, looking at the bedding ground squirrels at Tioga Pass, which is right outside of Yosemite National Park in California. You can look at age, proportion of females weaning a litter, the mean size of litters, males plus females, mean number of females in the litter, and average number of female offspring. So again, you can compare and contrast. Life history diversity, okay, results from environmental pressures and also the evolutionary natural selection. So life histories are very diverse. You can have simulparity, or which is Big Bang reproduction, or heteroparity, which is repeated reproduction, produce offspring repeatedly. So this is an agave tree. An example of Big Bang or simulparity reproduction. The leaves of the plant are visible at the base of the giant flowering stalk, which is produced only at the end of the agave's lifespan. So it occurs in such, this is an agave is called a century plant. So they generally grow in arid desert climates with unpredictable rainfall and poor soils. So it grows and grows, accumulating nutrients in its tissues until an unusually wet year, and then it sends up a large flowering stalk, produces seeds, and dies. So this life history is an adaptation to the agave's harsh desert environment. In contrast, repeated reproduction or heteroparity, some lizards produce a few large eggs during their second year of life and then reproduce annually for several years. Most weedy plants such as this dandelion grow quickly and produce a large number of seeds, ensuring that at least some will grow into plants and eventually produce seeds themselves. So variation in seed and crop size in plants. So these are trade-offs in life histories. Whereas this plant, some plants such as this coconut palm, produce a moderate number of very large seeds in contrast to the dandelion. Each seed's very large endosperm, which provides nutrients for the embryo. This is an adaptation that helps ensure the species of a relatively large fraction of offspring. So, populations of individuals are regulated by an interaction of both live biotic and abiotic, not live influences. So the two general questions about regulation of population growth: what environmental factors stop a population from growing? That's to be explored. And why do some populations show radical fluctuations and changes in size over time while others remain stable? So you have to look at the interaction of abiotic and abiotic influences. So the definition of density independent, a birth rate or death rate that does not change with population density, is density independent. For example, the mortality of dune fescue grass is mainly due to physical factors that kill similar proportions of a local population, regardless of its density. So, density independent. density dependent, a death rate that rises as population density rises, or a birth rate that falls with rising density is density dependent, like it becomes choked out. For example, reproduction by dune fescue declines as population density increases. They're competing for space. So these three graphs show population change and population density. The first graph, both birth rate and death rate change with population density. You can see density-dependent birth rate, density-dependent death rate. The middle graph, birth rate changes with population density while the death rate is constant. So here you can see the blue line, density-dependent birth rate, which declines. Density-independent death rate remains the same. The bottom graph, death rate changes with population density while birth rate is constant. So you can see the death rate increases, the red line, density-dependent death rate, and the density-independent birth rate remain the same. So density-dependent population regulation, there's a competition for resources, which makes common sense. So in crowded populations, increasing population density intensifies intra-specific competition for resources. So on the left, the plantain plant, the number of seeds produced by plantain decreases as density increases because they're fighting for nutrients. On the right-hand side, the song sparrow clutch size, which clutch means number of babies produced, and the song sparrow on the Mondarte Island, British Columbia, decreases as density increases because food is in short supply. Love this picture. Territoriality. In many vertebrates and some invertebrates, territoriality may limit density. Cheetahs, like this cheetah here, is highly territorial, using chemical communication to warn other cheetahs of their boundaries. Stay away. Cheetahs are staking out territory with a chemical marker in urine. These gannets are also exhibiting territoriality in nesting behavior. Gannets nest virtually a peck apart and defend their territories by calling and pecking eggs. Health. Population density can influence the health and survival of organisms. Makes sense. In dense populations, pathogens can more easily spread and more quickly. And human pathogens can also show density-dependent infection rates. In more crowded situations, such as urban situations, human pathogens travel more rapidly. For example, tuberculosis, which is caused by bacteria, is spread through the air when an infected person coughs or sneezes. So this happens in the cities. This is more easily transmitted than if an infected person with the tuberculin mycobacterium sneezes or coughs in a rural. Predation. As a prey population builds up, predators may feed preferentially on that species. For example, trout may concentrate for a few days feeding on a particular species of insect that is emerging from its aquatic larval stage. Then it will switch its predation as another insect species becomes more abundant. Toxic wastes. With accumulation of these, they contribute to density-dependent regulation of population size. Again, common sense. For example, ethanol accumulates as a byproduct of yeast fermentation. The alcohol content of wine is usually less than 13%. This is the maximum concentration of ethanol that the yeast cells can tolerate. Anything else?